Welcome to the Newsletter Journal's Top of Maine podcast, where we take a deeper look at the issues that matter most to the people of Newcastle and Weston County. Newsletter Journal publisher Bob Bonner and NLJ News editor Alexis Barker will go off the page and dive into the topics that deserve a different look. Welcome to another episode of the Newsletter Journal's Top of Maine podcast. I'm your host, NLJ publisher Bob Bonner. My co-host is news editor Alexis Barker. And we're joined today by our guest, Susan Love, longtime Newcastle resident, former Chamber of Commerce director, back when the Chamber was still, and I think they're doing some things right now to try and make a comeback, but Susan was in charge when it was still a pretty significant mover in the community, in the business community, and we wanted to bring her on. We've got Black Friday coming up, Sue, so I thought it was a good time to talk about local business and in the local economy. And I don't know, there's probably people who know more about it than you or me, but not very many. And you in particular, as a former business owner, as a former chamber director, I think you've got a pretty good idea of the pulse of the community. So thanks for joining us on the show today.
You bet. My first podcast.
Is it really?
Well, of course.
Well, good. Well, I'm glad. Well, no, I'm glad we've got you on. I mean, that's one of the things, since, I don't know if when I moved to Durango, Colorado, I became a remote consumer of my own content. And kind of during COVID, I really started consuming a lot of, content on like my phone, and podcasts was one of the things that I started picking up. And of course, they've done nothing but grow. And there's a few around Wyoming right now, but not near as many as is what I've gotten into. I don't know. I've got like 20 podcasts I'm following right now. Do you listen to podcasts, Sue, or?
Not a lot. A little. Depends.
Like just if you see something interesting comes over your news feed on social media or something, you might click on it.
Exactly. But I'm not a groupie.
Well, that's all right. So is it mostly the state stuff like Cowboy State politics and stuff, or do you ever listen to Rogan or Tucker or any of those guys?
Oh, the national ones once in a while, but I really try to focus on state.
Mm-hmm.
Stay with the state. The news that we get federally or nationally, I guess national is the word. It's important, but you have no control. So you might as well pay attention to what's going through the legislature and find you a legislator.
God, that's a great segue yeah, that's what we want to talk about. And that's why I wanted to have you as a guest because, first, you can tell us what you're up to these days. But the one thing I do know you're up to is you're still very engaged in local government, local politics. You pay attention to local business. I don't know if you fancy yourself, I'm sure you don't fancy yourself an influencer, but by I think Newcastle and Weston County standards, you put yourself out there. You're not afraid to comment on the things you see around you, and you're not afraid to ask people to comment and share their thoughts on things either. And so, yeah, you've kind of, and this all started with a post you put up about businesses a couple of weeks ago, is what gave me the idea to have you on the show. But yeah, you've stayed very engaged in what's going on in your backyard, and that's one of the things. I think you and I we've had our scraps over the years, but I think that's one of the things that we've always agreed on is one of the nice things about living in Wyoming and Weston County is that, yeah, the people who make decisions, you see them on the street, whether it's your congressman or legislator or mayor or county commissioner, and you do have an opportunity to provide input and be an actual part of the system. Is that, and I also know you're a strong, constitutionalist, Sue. Are you just interested in what's going on locally? Is it self-preservation? Or are you one of those people who think, in a democracy or republic, whatever you want to call it, we're a republic, I know, but in a republic, the citizens have a role and a responsibility and a duty. Is that what keeps you engaged and interested?
It's really sad and disheartening to me right now that our citizenry is not engaged. It's so easy to not participate, to not pay attention, to not watch the news. I hate it when people say, oh, I don't pay attention to politics. Well, I'm sorry, but politics is driving our life right now. And I have time because I'm retired and my kids are working full time. So I kind of feel like maybe I can be that, you know, information gatherer for them.
Hmm. Hmm. And you do serve that role. Yeah, you're an interesting follow on Facebook. So, and I do, as the guy who owns the local newspaper, obviously we want people to care and pay attention. And yep, it's felt like pulling teeth at times. I don't, Sue, and I don't live there anymore. I'm excited, by this time tomorrow I'll be probably more than halfway there, coming up to spend the week at Thanksgiving and see some people. But um, yeah, I don't know. Do you think the apathy has gotten worse? I mean, I'm so close to it as far as putting the news out, um, that it's really hard. Obviously, newspaper sales are down and all that stuff, but that's nationwide. That's not just Weston County. Weston County's population and business community is down. So there's a lot of factors there. Do you think the apathy is gotten worse too, or is this just kind of who we've become and have been for quite a while?
I think more people are paying attention. I think it's a poke the bear situation. I think things are starting to impact our lives, our education, um, our taxes. All these things we're starting to feel them, and then people kind of, pay a little more attention. Now they just need to, because we've never studied civics, nobody has any civics. I am just really, I've been pretty ignorant about it too. But to find out how you fit into how you make your voice heard, where you fit, where do you take your thoughts and issues first to come up the
Mhm.
chain. And as soon as you figure out what that ladder, as soon as you learn the ladder, it's easy in Wyoming. But we have to know civics and we have to know where you step onto the ladder.
And do people just not care, or is it that confusing, or does government make it confusing to step onto the ladder?
Well, there's apathy.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe how do I put this? Nobody wants to show their ignorance, so they look the other way.
Kind of the
Nobody
emperor's
wants
new
to say,
clothes thing.
yeah, I don't know where to hang on. I don't know who to call. I don't want to be seen as a political activist by going to the Republican meeting. I don't know, all sorts of things.
Well, so what do you think, Alexis? Are people exhausted? Are they worn out, or are they actually starting to rally and make a comeback and pay attention a little more?
So I think that people are paying attention a little more, and maybe some people that uh, never have started. But I also think that there is just this idea that what can I do anyways? So why try? And I think that that's probably how a lot of younger people feel. But I think it's probably a lack of education on how you can do those things. I don't recall ever being taught in school where I would start to address an issue in my community that I felt was there.
See, and man, I don't know. Maybe it was just me being a weird kid or a weird adult. And like I said, I always thought it was really easy to engage in Wyoming. You're not necessarily going to make friends, um, and you'll probably lose friends over time. I think all three of us have experienced that. That is a price and a sacrifice you pay from being civically engaged. But I mean, it really is as easy as just go to a meeting, raise your hand, and tell them what you think. I mean, so you know, is it a lack of knowledge, or is it just that people don't understand that it is just that easy?
Well, so I think it's probably both. And you mentioned friends and losing friends and such, and I think that that probably plays a role into it. It's easier to just sit back and be quiet and keep your opinion to yourself than risk setting somebody off.
Which leads us to
Isn't that sad?
It's very sad, but I can see that being the mindset of people.
I agree.
Well, good. And so the reason you do take a chance and the reason you do go ahead and be willing to make your friends and family uncomfortable by saying things that people maybe don't necessarily want to hear. Um, I think there's plenty of them in Wyoming right now. I think, in this way, I wanted to have Sue on to talk a little bit about business because uh, you look at our main street, it got easy for a long time. It was, it feels like we spent about 20 years, Sue, saying, boy, I wish it would look like it did in the 80s again. But now we're at a point, I wish it looked like it did in the early 2000s again. I mean, it seems like there's been another chunk of Main Street that has just sort of disappeared. Well, we literally saw some of it disappear, right, with modern cleaners going down a couple of weeks ago. At the same time, this statistic that I've been really pounding on lately, or has been pounding on me, of 70% of Wyoming's high school graduates leave the state before they're 30. As someone who was able to hang on and stay there till I was 50, it's I get it. It was a battle, and Sue, that was some of our battles, right? We were both pretty passionate about the local business community. As a chamber director and as a newspaper publisher, we both had roles in promoting the business community and serving the business community and helping connect them to the people of the community. And in this engagement that we've been talking to, now you take it to a financial level, and it's not as easy as, everybody wants to say, well, yeah, shop at home and you preserve and persevere. But the world changed and there's this online marketplace now, and I get all that. But I mean, did we ever have a chance, Sue, or is this train just been coming down the tracks and it was going to get us no matter what we did?
The the catch 22 is we need the infrastructure to support new industry. New industry is not going to come without the infrastructure. And it seems like we cannot get off that mark. Now
What specific infrastructure are
Upton,
we missing, though? I mean,
housing is always the first thing that's
I
said.
agree with that.
So
Yeah.
housing, nice streets. We do have the hospital, airport, schools. We have that, but housing seems to be the stumbling block. Um, so if an industry was to come in here, let's say somebody decided to come in and put in I don't know, a toothpick factory, let's say. Anyway, um, they're going to want labor, and the labor isn't going to move here if they don't have any place to live, and the streets are all are not in good shape. And the main street, it comes and it goes. It's so we have the cutest little main street.
We do. I
And
think it's so much potential in our main street. I really, really do. Always
yes,
have.
yeah. And the businesses down there, bless their hearts, man, they work hard. Um, Jen Womack and Cody with the seconds on Main, and Bev and Robbie Litteris, they're golden. They're golden businesses. They're anchor businesses, all three of them. And then the the supporting businesses struggle to stay. Isabella's has been there a long time, but
Hmm.
we just like the antlers came and went.
Right.
And um I don't know, it's just you'll have a little store and then it's gone.
Right. Yeah, I think retail is especially hard right now. I mean, we closed ours and probably should have closed the office supply store 5 years earlier than we did, but didn't want to just because we didn't want to be another closed retail store on Main Street. Um,
Right.
the other thing you've
Right.
got in Newcastle is that succession plan where there was always, one of the children would take over the business when mom or dad retired. That doesn't see. It seems like when business people are retiring, the businesses are shuttering right now. There's no
Mhm.
succession plan either. So is what's the best? You say infrastructure. Part of it, it's sort of a vicious cycle because one of the things I think of now that I live in a place with a Walmart and a McDonald's and all those things, I get it, right? When I hear We ran a recruiting campaign for the police department. Um, we've, I started talking 10 years ago with the school district and other people about maybe putting a comprehensive recruiting campaign together for the county. Um, it's hard. I'm sure there are people who still want that lifestyle, um, and are okay with not having, these retail opportunities and some of the fast food and convenience stuff. Um, but finding them is kind of difficult. How do you think, do you see a path forward?
You're not going to get retail until you get an industry that brings in labor, because retail won't survive without customers. Customers have to live here and they have to have a job. So so here's probably where we kind of have a different idea. We have to have the industry to make the retail grow. And then I see so many things. They keep reaching toward tourism. They'll reach toward tourism, but until you have your retail main street alive and thriving, tourism isn't going to come.
You're not
So
well, and you're
we,
not giving anybody. You're not tourists come and do whatever and leave, but they never leave any
yeah,
money here if you don't have anywhere for them to spend it. So,
exactly, exactly.
what about the industry? We heard a few months ago, in Mary Stroke, our reporter, who comes down and covers stuff out of Gillette for us up there. She did a nice job. She listened to a congressional committee hearing when the head of RER spoke, and she picked up that he mentioned that it was tough to recruit people to Upton to staff the demo plant, and that is just a demo plant. There hasn't been a decision made on where the permanent plant's going to be. Now, I got to think Upton's got an advantage because the demo plant's there and is apparently going to open here in about 2 months now. Um, Long time waiting. I saw someone on Facebook post that it's been like a dozen years we've been working towards that, um, and about to become a reality. But they did admit that one of the hard things was recruiting a workforce to staff that plant. And one of the reasons was because there was no retail. So, we used to have it in the school district. You'd want to hire somebody, and their wife had come. There are a lot of times it seemed like men are more drawn to the community than maybe women are. Is that fair, or am I? Um,
I,
it's a great place to raise a family, but it's, kind of the old West has always been tougher on women than it is men. Is that part of it still? That's a read I seem to get.
I can name two families that I've known that where the husband came, had the job, brought his wife in the evening. It was dark by the time they got here.
Hmm.
Both of these women said they cried when the sun came up, and I'm
Yeah.
like, how sad. But
Because, yeah, I
you can
love the
understand
place. And
why.
so
Yeah.
I never could get it but then I think as I got older, I maybe started to understand, well, yeah, you're a man, dude. This is paradise to you. But women want some different things, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And how getting those cogs to catch, because like I say, you gotta have nice streets and housing before you can have industry. Industry will bring more people, which will raise retail. But then, like you say, they don't want to come. Your labor force doesn't want to come if you don't have retail. So how do you grow? It's a
Yes.
I could never figure it out. Obviously, I tried. I could not see how you get that cog to catch.
Well, we both did, and we tried together for a while, and then I think just as frustration set in, and I went, no, I think because we didn't get the result right, and so you're like, well, we
Right.
need to. Eventually, we hit a point where you were like, all right, I think the next thing we got to try is this, and I was like, no, I think the next thing's going to be this, and so it wasn't, we tried together, we tried separately, we've tried, but I don't want to be a doomsday sayer. Is it going to take just absolute perfect miracle to resurrect the local economy? And this is happening all across the country. There's towns in Colorado, South Dakota. My dad's old town in Eastern Washington looks so much like Newcastle, it's almost scary. Um, that these are great great little communities. And obviously now there's this additional, we weren't dealing with Amazon 20 years ago when we were fighting this battle, Sue. Our great enemy was Walmart. And now we've got Amazon and gosh, you can push I just paid my hospital bill down here. It took me 8 seconds on my phone. I got a text from him that I had a bill. I clicked the thing, clicked accept, and it was done. Um, is that part of it? It's one of the things, I've been holding these little marketing workshops once a month and don't get a real good response from that. I think that Newcastle's got to get on board. Newcastle's businesses and governments got to get on board with tech and make themselves a part of that world. Um, but what else could they do? I think yes, the tech beat us up a little bit as far as our business community went, but I think we're in a position now where it could maybe help us or help the right businesses. Is there, what else is part of that puzzle? Is it, economic development committees? We've seen those come and go. I know you've participated in several of those over the years. Or is it all of the above?
So our conversation started out with an apathetic citizenry.
Hmm.
And I believe that's part of our problem in getting our community to grow is I'm not real sure that the majority, or maybe it's the old school, really is involved enough to want it to make it happen.
The people who have lived there for a long time, they're just kind of wore
Mhm.
out and
Or they're happy.
or content. Sure.
They're content. And and then the younger people have moved, like you say, they move. They're like, well, you can fight the establishment or you can go somewhere where people want to move forward. I don't know. I've kind of given up on trying to figure out how to make this work, but because like you say, we've seen this go over and over again. How many different, was it Mickey Beavers or somebody like that? This was a long time ago. This we've tried to invent this wheel how many
Hmm.
times in this community? And there's a ceiling. And what is that ceiling and how do we break it?
Well, so what about the flip side of that? Is there a floor? Or do you go through the floor and pretty soon Newcastle becomes Upton, pretty soon becomes Osage, right? You don't have to go far to
Yeah.
see the different steps in this progression in Weston County. Um, and that's why I got to think I think politics is a part of it. I think pride is a part of it. But that heck, I'd love to get back to the old ceiling in Newcastle and Weston County again. Has the ceiling come down on us, and is the floor now gone down on us, or is there a place where Newcastle levels off and it kind of is what it is? Because there are some good jobs there. There's some successful businesses. Well, your son, right, is a
Mhm.
great example. Sean Crabtree, Bucky Rawhauser, but those guys make a whole bunch of their money somewhere else. Um, they're able to hire help and good help and run good businesses based in Newcastle. Dixon Brothers is another one. Um, Deckers has got an expanded market. But if you're just, I remember Tom Farnsworth telling me back in the day, I didn't make my money in Newcastle in Weston County. Um, is that ultimately, and it's sort of the business model that I'm trying to adopt with the newsletter journal, to be honest with you, too, is to have more of a statewide and regional sphere of influence because I don't know if there's enough dollars in Newcastle to support a business. I think you have to be appealing to a clientele that's geographically at least larger than it was 10 or 20 years ago.
Just the makeup of our whole community is retired. I moved here because I want to be left alone.
Mhm.
Um, it, it's we've got our own character. Weston County it has its own characteristics.
Has that character changed?
I don't believe so.
You think it's always sort of, I mean, yeah, I remember 40 years ago saying, man, if, some people would just get out of the way, there's some things that we could do around here, right? So I do
Mhm.
know that, and I think it's what you talk about. There's always been people who are comfortable I've got what I need. I'm going to retire in a couple of years. Don't mess with that. Why do we need? Just leave me alone. Um, so how is that responsible to some extent for Newcastle's still got about the same population, but the school population is about a third of what it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, we have an aging population for sure. Um, I don't know. I used to know the statistics on this, but I haven't been keeping track. This was 20 years ago. How many people live out in out on the gravel roads and out in the county and out rural and really don't they move here from other places and they don't have um this connection to the community because they grew up here. And that's why Bucky and Josh, they grew up here. They have a connection. They feel a responsibility,
Mhm.
so they stay. But yeah, they don't make their money here. You're right. But
So
other people, yeah.
go ahead.
I was going to say there's a lot of people here that don't have that long history with us.
Right.
I just have to say, I think it's crazy that Sue just said the same thing that we always talk about about the break in the have-nots being comfortable enough that they don't need to help the people that need, or they don't need to make changes to accommodate those people because they're just content and happy where they're at.
Mhm. And they probably are a lot of them not born and raised and their family didn't grow up here.
It is getting, yeah, and I do I see some of the commenters on our social media and I'm like, who the hell's that? Especially when they're saying mean things about me. I'm like, wait a second, do I know you? Um yeah, but I still there's got to be a way. I still think we talk Sue, you talk about what a cute Main Street we have. Um Cost of living is low in Weston County. There's an abundance of water. That's something not above ground, but the Madison Formation below. There's a lot of public land. I still think, and this is maybe why I get so frustrated, and why I guess so many people end up not liking me because I just won't give up. I just I just feel like we got to get the right kind of hungry to come in. Yes, and Alexis, you're right. I mean, those who have theirs already discourage those who are still striving, who still want more, who are still looking for a way. Um, and so, yeah, it's not a good place to be a hungry person. And by hungry, I mean hungry for success, hungry to build something, hungry to make a difference. But I still think there's a lot of good things in Newcastle and Weston County if we can just find a way to expose the right people in the world to that. I mean, we live in a country of hundreds of millions of people. Um, there's got to be 5,000 of them out there, and that's a big number, right? We don't need 5,000 more people in Newcastle. Give me 1,000, start giving me some younger people mixed in with the retirees. I think there are younger people who would see Weston County and like what they see and enjoy living there. Um, but I don't know what the message is, how we reach those people. I mean, you can spend a lot of money and put together marketing campaigns, and I've had ideas for that over the years. But how do you how do you find a way? That's what brought people to Wyoming in the first place. They were hungry. People on the East Coast, those who were successful, those families continued to be successful. Other families couldn't find success. There was a ceiling there, and they couldn't break through, so they came west. Um, is there a chance, Zoran Mondami's running New York? Maybe we need to get a marketing campaign going in New York. Hey, if you're sick of crazy, come to the tranquility of Weston County,
No,
Wyoming.
let's not.
You
See,
don't
I'm one of them.
you don't want the people fleeing Mamdani. Who do we as far as getting younger people back into the community, Sue? I mean, because I think that's something that everybody's identified is that if the community continues to age at the rate it has, and Buffalo's going through the same thing right now, it's all across Wyoming. Um, there's no future in being an aging community. So something's, where should we be finding young people
So
to
in
immigrate to Weston County?
yeah, well, it's like you started out. We need retail. We need a happy downtown, first of all. And we have a pretty downtown, but
Mhm.
it's not alive with people.
No.
Um, I was I had to think about Hill City.
Hmm.
Hill City was 800 people. They weren't on an interstate. They had competition at anywhere, both directions out, you
Right.
go. And they pulled a rabbit out of the hat. They started with a quilt show. Do you remember that? They
Yeah,
started with a
I do.
quilt show.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they advertised in the Sweet 16 magazine.
Yep. They started with a quilt show, and then they had Cinco de Mayo, and then now they have sculpture, art, theater, I don't know, all sorts of things. All summer long, they have tons of different activities going on. They shut down in the winter, but
Mhm.
you know what? Not as much as they used to either. So they have a good plan. And they started out with 800 people. That's their population over there. So I don't know exactly how they pulled that off, except that they probably had a core group that was driven to do it.
That's exactly what I was
And
just going to say. Dream
you
team.
can't I never did find the dream team.
Hmm. Hmm. And you tried. You really did. I mean, I do know you tried. Decker's Market has been a family tradition that has proudly served Northeast Wyoming since the 1950s. It is a tradition that is sure to continue with the family's new superstore in Newcastle, where consumers can enjoy a modern shopping experience complete with a deli, floral and gift shop, and a full-service pharmacy. We invite you to sit down with friends and enjoy a cup from Cambria Coffee while you're in the store. And don't forget to pop in and check out the weekly deals at Bootlegger's Liquor before your shopping is done. Go Broncos, go Pokes, go Dogies, go to Deckers. We look forward to being a part of your family traditions for years to come. And so part of it by the time you came around trying to form your dream team, um, I'd been on Norma's dream team and Keith Rasmussen's dream team and Tom Mullen's dream team. And, I'd been on some dream teams already. And by the time you came along, I thought I knew how dream teams, I'd seen what worked and what didn't, right? You ran into that. You replaced someone who'd been in the position for a really long time. But I'd also been burned in some of those relationships. And so it was hard for me to be on the team with some of the people you wanted me to be on the team with. And I know that's something that I hope I've outgrown. I mean, I really do. That was an area I wanted to improve when I took my sabbatical 6 years ago and moved. And I think I have, but at the same time, I understand where I mean, it's still a factor and it's got to be a factor in a lot of places, but it's definitely a factor in Newcastle and Weston County. The bad thing about people is they got personalities. Um, and so again, was it just lightning struck in Hill City? Uh, or, I mean, you see it with high school sports teams, right? You just happen to get the right group of kids come through and for 4 or 5 years, you're really good. Could the
Are
right
you
group of
watching Grass?
people, what's that?
Are you watching Grass Range, Montana?
No.
Town of probably 100 people, and they've gone to state or something. They're just on fire. This
Oh,
little it's 6-man football, and they
six-man
are on
football.
fire. So we need those guys. We need those guys right there to move to Newcastle and put up a business, I guess. I don't know. I it's awfully hard. It's awfully
Well,
hard to get that thing to catch.
it's hard to get it started, but then it's really hard to sustain and maintain it. And I guess that's it
Hmm.
for me. I mean, I was fortunate. I was blessed. Um, Grace of God, I was able to, sell my house and give myself 6 months off work, and then COVID hit, and so the world was crazy for about a year, and I was able to kind of get right mentally to do this job again and approach it and drop some of the anger and frustration that I'd had. from doing this stuff, from trying to, like I said, I was trying to set up my own dream teams, right? I mean, we were all running around. We all thought we had solutions. We had ways to fix it. But part of me wondered, so it's hard to do over 10 years or 20 years with the same people at least. But if you could get a group of people to move forward for 5 years, um, and do a better job. I mean, I guess this is part of it I'm asking. It was one of our failings that we didn't get younger people involved and that we just kept trying to carry the weight and move it forward and weren't ready to hand it off to somebody, and so we all got burned out and tired. Um, did we not do a very good job of
Yeah,
inviting younger people into the movement?
I didn't see it that way because I think we had, we worked with Black Hills Power
Mhm.
and we had a mix. We had a mix of people that had just moved to town. That would be Heidi.
Mhm.
Um, People that had been in town a long time, people that had tried it before, people that hadn't tried it before and were excited about trying something new. That would be probably Chris Muller with the
Mhm.
hardware store. He was younger.
Oh
See, did
man,
you
but
catch
did he
that?
get
Yeah.
burned so bad though? I mean, right?
Yeah.
A year after he
Yeah.
buys his hardware store and invests his life savings in it,
Yeah.
another hardware
Yeah.
store opens up a block away. I mean, to compete directly against him. I mean, we were a town of 3,000 people with three full service hardware stores within 100 yards of each other. Um,
Mhm. Yeah,
that was crazy.
it's crazy. And to take um to take a model and try to use it, that's you have to get. Okay, I said we have anchor stores. We've got the quilt store brings a lot of people to
Mhm.
Newcastle. And the Antlers was the historic marker on Maine. Of course, we lost that now. um, Jan Womack has a really
Mhm.
beautiful little store. And then the antique store that called Seconds.
Mhm.
Cody, I'm not sure what's Cody's last name. I don't know. But anyway, those are stores that people will drive over here from Rapid City to shop at. So then you take the other businesses downtown that might be downtown, they should do everything they can possibly do to tie themselves to those businesses. But that cohesive glue or whatever, it's just they won't work together. They don't work together well, or they give up too soon. Oh, think about the people that come to town for the car show.
Right.
Unreal. The boys are putting on tough trucks and mud bogs at the fairgrounds in the summer. Once a month, 200 people come. The fairgrounds is always full of people, but they don't go downtown. So where the traffic might be here, but you can't make them stop because there's nothing to buy.
Right. There's nowhere for them to spend their dollars. So
Mm-hmm.
you're bringing bodies in, you make the community seem a little more alive for 2 or 3 days. But when the bodies move out, there's really no impact that they left behind.
The one thing that I really would have loved to have done while I was at the chamber would have been to move the Chamber of Commerce and the Visitor Center to Main Street. Because if as travelers come through town and they have to stop for a rest stop, and they stopped out there at the four-way stop and they jumped right back on the highway. And if they
Right.
would have had to come downtown and get out and use a facility and walk up halfway up Main Street and look in the windows and then go in and buy something or poke around, that would have been a plus. I always said I really, really wanted to take a 4x8 sheet of plywood, put it on the visitor center at the four-way stop that says P for free on Main Street.
I appreciate that kind of thinking, whatever it takes. That's why, as
Yeah.
much as Mark Gordon and I don't see eye to eye on things when he closed the the rest areas just outside of towns back during COVID. That was one of the things I agreed with him on. Our small communities need reasons for people to stop. Even if it's long enough to pee, you never know who they'll see, what'll catch their eye to make them maybe stay around a little more. So
Public restrooms on Main Street would be a great investment.
it would.
And we
It
have a
would. Well,
public
and
building.
I got to think every business on Main Street is, I don't know that we've ever told anybody no who's wanted to use a restroom at the newsletter journal, but
Right.
and so that's part of it. I still, again, I think that framework's there. I think it's a cute little downtown. But what do you think, Sue? Are the 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 business sector has definitely moved to the four-way now, with Pinnacle Bank's new location, Baumgart's. I mean, all of the new businesses in town are going up at the four-way. Do we just need to sell out to that? They seem to be doing a little better, and obviously there's traffic there. Um,
Well, really the only it's just the retail of Baumgart's.
right.
Um, what if the flower shop that's out by the port was on Main Street? What
Hmm.
if the lady that sells Oriental food out of her truck all over the place had a little restaurant on Main Street? Um, who else is on the outskirts that sells retail? AdPro. Wouldn't it be great if AdPro was on Main Street? If five businesses could move to Main Street, but and for personal reasons and financial reasons and everything, it's probably not going to happen. But that would then you'd have two eating places, you'd have night entertainment with the theater, you'd have boutique shopping. Um, we have a
I
hardware
hadn't
store
had that
downtown.
thought. So you're talking about consolidating, and I think yeah, real estate has something to do with that. I think condition of the buildings downtown has something to do with it too. I do think, you talked about housing, but I think that's a infrastructure issue for those downtown buildings is that, some of them aren't in real good shape.
Right, right.
And so, well, your guys' business, right? You guys built it down, towards AdPro where, it's where Josh's is. I mean, there are very, when you're making business decisions, you got to do what's right for the business. But is that maybe somewhere that, Ty Owens is, God bless him. He and Pam both at the same time right now are trying to do some economic development stuff. Is that the sort of thing that maybe you look for some grants to see if you can, work with local businesses to relocate them to your main street? That sounded
That's
like a good, when you said that, Sue, I was like, hey, here, that's something we haven't tried.
mhm.
Which
Yeah.
our main street wasn't as empty then, so it wasn't necessarily the solution 15 years ago, but it could certainly be a
And
solution now.
I don't know. I think we have those anchors, and if we're not careful, our anchors are going to slip away
Hmm.
because thank goodness the quilt store is just as lively and vibrant as it can be, and the secondhand store is growing and visited, and um having Ace Hardware down there is a good thing.
Hmm.
And having those businesses, it's night and day
And hometown
downtown.
medical, we shouldn't forget. I mean,
Yeah.
there are some people making a real go of it
Oh
in
yeah,
in
yeah. And
Newcastle
they're
and
building
working their
these.
asses off to do it. I mean, that's there. You
Yep,
have to absolutely
yeah.
work
And
your
the
ass
little
off to
wedding
make it.
or Western clothing
Yep.
store. Don't We
Yep.
can't forget
Deb
her.
Carr. Hmm.
So all it's kind of all there. It just needs pulled together. Um, but I don't know how you would ever make that happen. But
Do you think it's worth? I know who you are politically too. So here, let me throw you a trick question. Uh, what's government's role in that? Is should government be investing time, resources, perhaps money, um, in trying to spark a revival downtown? Is there a role for government there?
government should make the streets nice and smooth and all the lights work.
Okay.
make sure everybody's got water, make sure there's no fire hazards on Main Street.
Now, that
Um,
said, though, there's all this grant money and everything else out there, and other towns are getting it to do things like this. Or
so
is it appropriate for our government to work with the state to bring some of those resources in and match it with 10% or whatever?
yeah,
That
and you know that's what our probably what the city mayor, I don't know him very well, but probably that's what he's going after. He hired grant writers.
right.
And where what is the chamber's what does the chamber do?
I just heard Alexis. She's muted, but she's in the other room, so I could even hear her chuckle there. You know what? I don't want to. Man, I've had such a long and
Well, I don't mean what does our well, I didn't mean like personally what is our chamber doing today. I'm saying what do Chamber of Commerce's what is their mission statement? Why wouldn't that fall under the Chamber of Commerce?
well, it would in a perfect world, and I do think this Tia, this newest director, I haven't
Mhm.
met her, but
Yeah,
she
she's pulling
seems
it back together. Yeah.
she seems to be well, and heck, my daughter-in-law is on the board now. I mean, so kind of like with the police were, right? I've got a daughter on the police department now, so it's funny how things turn out. Um, but so yes, I want to hope that they're ready to do something like that. And I think you're 100% right, Sue. That's, that especially now where, the chamber, you had a whole lot more members in your directory to deal with than what they do now. Um, and you did do a good job of going up and down Main Street and stopping in and visiting with people. And that takes a lot of time. There's a lot of bandwidth expended there. They don't have to expend that much now, so that would be a good role for them. But I don't know. I don't know if the energy's there. I don't know if the expertise is there. Um, and so sometimes that's where, government ends up stepping in and doing it. And the city has hired a grant writer for $80 an hour or 80,000 a year, whatever it was. So I would hope that they're willing
So
to, if the chamber was to explore grant opportunities, I would hope that they would be able to access the city's grant writer, to facilitate and assist them in that stuff.
I was going to say it might behoove the city to bring the chamber director in on any conversations that go on with their grant writers so that it might migrate from the city to the chamber after a point in time. I don't know. $80,000 is a lot for like the chamber to put up, that's for sure. But
Well,
but
but it's the
you
way
have the Chamber of
Wyoming's.
Commerce be your point man.
Sure, sure. Well, and the reason you spend that much money on a grant writer is because your infrastructure, the stuff you're talking about, streets and water lines, um, that you only get. There's not enough money in Newcastle and Weston County to do those things. They just don't generate the tax revenue. Wyoming generates the tax revenue though, and the only way you access that state money to do the work you're talking about is to have a grant writer do it. It's just the way, for better or worse.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's how it's done now, right? So that's what I can easily see the justification for having that person on staff and spending that money. And I imagine she'll probably bring in, $1 million to $2 million a year in state money to do projects. That would be my expectation at least. But I would hope that she's also available to the Chamber of Commerce or, I put stuff together for the city. I've got a water park I'd like to put in at the fountain, and the city council's not giving me a lot of help with that. They actually went dark and quiet on me over that, but I've continued to work on it, and over the winter I'll get a proposal put together, and would like to, put a grant together. I hope that the city is going to facilitate that. Um, I mean, I do think government has that role, to that extent, where they've got that position. Now, I'm probably going to hear that person's too busy working on water lines and streets, but I do think it's going to take more than that, one way or the other. So, Alexis, Are you still
Yes.
with us? So what about you? You are, you're a different generation from Sue and I. You don't necessarily remember the 80s in downtown Newcastle, but what's your perception? You're a young mom, right? What's attractive about Newcastle? What about Newcastle screams potential and possibility, and what's the challenge there to reverse this?
Uh, I don't know how you would reverse it. I think the challenge though comes from convenience, and keeping young moms there and parents there and people wanting to come there to make these changes. I think there's going to have to be a look at yeah, and I don't know how you change that, to be honest. But I think that that's a lot of the problem in the workforce for women, mothers, access to childcare. We're talking about all of those things. I think those are all a hindrance on growth, because I think you have to have the shopping force, you have to have the population behind it to warrant bringing a business there.
Because it does seem like we have a lot of the, you alluded earlier in this, Sue, that we've got a pretty nice, relatively modern hospital facility, especially for a town Newcastle size. That's a fantastic facility. The schools, I still call them the new schools, even though they're 25 years old, but they've been kept like new. They're in really good shape. There's been good maintenance on them and upgrades when needed over the years. I mean, there's a lot of good infrastructure in Newcastle, and it does seem like it's just sort of that private economy, that private sector economy that's sort of lacking there. I mean, doesn't now, and we always thought that those things, the hospitals, schools, that those things were an advantage, and it was sort of if you build it, people will come. But doesn't that speak to, man? I mean, I know we tried a lot of things. Um, but I almost think like we had a lot of, I think it's close. I still feel like it's close. I still think like you have all or a lot of the really important pieces in place, and that there's still reason to keep trying.
I think
You know,
people,
oh, go ahead, Alexis.
well, and I think that that's completely accurate, and it's getting the right people in there to act on that and take advantage of what is there to build upon.
Sue?
So something that I see happen in a lot of communities and in this community is people from uh, more populated areas come here, so it's quiet because they like it, and then they become the leaders. They jump in, and then what do we do as the old
This is the old guard.
uh, the old guard? We say, "Oh, they're just coming here to try to change it, like
Right,
to where they came from,"
right.
but they're not. They're just trying to push us forward so we survive.
Yeah, I had to move to kind of get clear on that though, Sue. So I give you credit. You've evolved better than I did in Weston County. I had to leave Weston County to understand that it was okay to do things differently. That it's okay to change, that it's okay to do those things. So I really do. I tip my hat to you that you've lived there and you were able to see that too. Because I do think there's going to have to be some new ideas and some acceptance of doing some new things. But gosh dang, I feel like it's possible. So let's stop on that note. Sue, give me the good news about this. What are the good things that if this is a commercial, if we're making a commercial for, hey, move to Newcastle, Weston County, start a business, raise your family, what's your sales pitch to people?
So the good news is when I go down Main Street and I see the decorations out on the street and know that that business is open and it's welcoming, and the person, the owner of the shop, that is wonderful. I have one little story. This
Sure.
this little boy um was waiting at the library. I was across the street sketching, and here comes his buddy, and he takes his bike and he stashes it under the tree, and off the two of them go skipping down the street. And I'm thinking, what a wonderful piece of Americana right there. I mean, that is our town. And then around the corner on the porch of one of the little old houses, there's a bunch of kids out there just laughing and talking and hanging out without their phones. And I'm like, this is where everybody wants to raise their kids. And the people that have lived here forever have to step back and let new people lead.
Well, and I think our local resident influencers got to start pulling her phone out and getting that stuff on video, Sue. You need to share that.
Oh,
Because
do
I
I carry
think you're
my
right.
phone
I think
everywhere?
that is
Oh,
the sales pitch. This Newcastle is what America used to be. And I think there's a whole lot, heck, you can see it politically. There's a whole lot of people who want that. And, it is a place where your kids can still go out and play and be safe and ride their bikes and stuff. So, I mean, yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a great selling point. We just need to get people to embrace that a little more, I guess. And I don't know how we project it more, but we do need to think about it. So thanks for the idea. Maybe I'll come up with a way to do it.
I'm sure there's jobs because you see signs in all the windows.
Hmm. Yeah, I will say as a business owner, it's hard to hire help. Because we're in
Yeah.
that range of businesses, we can't pay. We can't do health insurance and the retirement plans that the school, the refinery, even Josh and those types of businesses that can do. And that's a hard thing too. I think small businesses are sort of up against it across the country. And the health insurance, I think, is a big part of it. I know that's been a big hurdle for me being able to hire and attract help over the years. So that's a downside of it, um, but it's doable still. And I think there's plenty to sell. There's small businesses. You got to do it somewhere. You might as well do it in Newcastle because I do think with the schools, the hospital, beautiful courthouse, like I said, a great main street that I think is just ripe with possibility and opportunity. And the one thing we haven't mentioned is there's still a lot of really, really good people in Weston County. Um,
Oh yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and I think
Yeah.
I
And
think that's a selling point.
when you're here, take advantage of what is going on because the fairgrounds and the quilt projects that she does and by golly, Tough Trucks is a hoot. You need to
Hmm.
come to that.
Hmm. Well, good. I will try and catch that in the summer, and I hope you. What's your plans for Thanksgiving?
Oh, I think the kids are coming here. Some of
Okay.
them.
All
I'm getting a lot of them. And they
right.
grow up and they get married and they have babies and the family grows and it won't all fit in the house anymore, hardly.
Yeah, that's the best part, and you know it.
It is. It's wonderful.
Well, Sue, thanks so much for coming on the podcast with us this week. I've really enjoyed catching up with you again.
You bet. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, you bet. And thanks to all of you who stopped by to listen. We want to encourage you to follow the newsletter journal, buy the paper every week. We need the money, by gosh. But follow us on the website, subscribe to Nuke Now, to our YouTube channel, and to this podcast on all your favorite platforms. And thanks again for joining us today and learning a little bit more about Weston County and the business climate with our guest, Susan Love. For Alexis Barker, this is Bob Bonner. And thank you for joining us and learning just a little bit more about Weston County, Wyoming, and your world. Go to newslj.com/podcast to access archived episodes of our show. You can also follow us or subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout, and other great platforms.